This is Professor Taj Al Khazin. It is Friday, the 30th of June, 2023, from Ottawa, Canada. And this is the YouTube number 1919. And the title of this YouTube is Introduction to SCOAC and West Darfur Masalit Tragedy. SCOAC stands for Sudan Crisis Organization of Advocacy, Outreach and Advocacy Canada. I will give a brief identification of this new organization. It is a small body in size, but it is big in objectives. And I will add this to our list of YouTubes, 18 so far, and this will be the 19th. Right now, SCOAC is dealing with 5 themes. The first theme is Introduction to SCOAC and West Darfur Masalit Tragedy. The second theme is going to be South Kordofan, Blue Nile, and the dirty games of South Sudan and Al-Hilu, and the relief service. And I will factor in the oil passage through Sudan, anywhere between 135,000 barrels per day to 170,000 barrels per day. Theme number 3 is the paper tigers, IGAD and AU, and a reality check on them and their ill treatment of Sudan. Theme number 4 will be when the annihilation of the RSF is over, the eternal ailment of Sudan, fragility, creditworthiness, and state building. We have got to stop talking about subjective politics, people and personalities. We have got to stop talking about Westminster democracy. We have got to find out what is wrong with Sudan with courage and with knowledge. And the theme number 5 is building Sudan, multi-donor trust fund or New Deal, donor fatigue and compassion fatigue. That will be the last of this series. And that's the time when we get into the lion's den and find out what is really wrong with us in Sudan. The organization concept note for Crisis Outreach and Advocacy Canada, Sudan Crises with an ES, because there is more than one crisis with an IS. And the abbreviation is SCOAC. SCOAC is an exclusively Canadian organization operating only in Canada nationwide. We will reach out and establish long-term and productive contacts with policymakers, think tanks, the academia that are engaged in African affairs, civil society active in monitoring and supporting the rebuilding of the integrity of Sudan as an independent African country and as a political player in the Horn of Africa. We're not going to deal with the humanitarian envelope. That has got its own people, and it is normally bilateral, and it is normally it is normally multilateral, and it is normally with international organizations. It's very difficult to influence that. We should not kid ourselves. The fourth objective is that we are an autonomous organization. We don't work under anyone. However, we can sign memoranda of understanding of cooperation. We are going to target comprehensive political settlements and community-based conflict resolution. This will be primary objectives, probably in the longer run, not now. In our outreach, SCOAC shall refrain from engaging with or falling under the influence of biased, abusive, and hegemonic Western countries and shall not advocate for Westminster democracy and the nation state democracy as a model of governance. We are not Portugal, we are not Bangladesh, we are not Japan. We don't have cross cutting commonalities across Sudan to do that. We are a state, but we are not a nation. We shall advocate for preventive diplomacy rather than wait until something goes wrong. And we will follow the footsteps of peacemaking, peacekeeping, and peace building in a country that has been shattered by high treason, insurrection, indiscriminate destruction, war crimes, crimes against humanity practices since the onset of 2023. SCOAC succeeds to partner with and develop the capacity of local institutions in Sudan. We are a diaspora organization, but we are not working for the diaspora. We are not engaged in the diaspora issues. We are engaged only solely with the situation on the ground in Sudan. And no lip service. We're not going to talk a lot. Upon maturity, SCOAC as an advocacy organization, we shall engage in drafting the pillars and cornerstones of a federal constitution, observing its compatibility, complementarity, compliance, concurrency, subsidiarity, supremacy, and other factors, putting an end to the shameful scenario of having 7 constitutions in 67 years. This has not happened anywhere else in the world. A good person, without mentioning names, is helping me to develop a website for SCOAC. And once the technical part is done, a lot of material is going to be uploaded, and then people can just click and go into the website, and you will find that quite a bit of the material in my archives, in my laptop, in my library, uh, and the 18, and this is number 19, YouTube, all those are going to be in the website and will be reached easily. In dealing with the issue of Sudan, we need to be careful about semantics. We need to be careful about definitions. We should not talk about genocide unless we know what we are talking about. And we should not talk about genocide unless what we are talking about falls within the definition of genocide as defined by the United Nations. Otherwise, we'll just be barking. We'll not be talking, but we'll be barking. I'll be cheating the people. That's what concerns me more. The National Criminal Court. Some people, if they have a fight with their wives, they believe that they can bring in the International Criminal Court. That's not correct. It is a permanent institution, and shall have the power to exercise its jurisdiction over persons for the most senior crimes of international concern, as referred to its statute, and shall be complementary to the national criminal jurisdictions. So it's not a standalone. You cannot go to the International Criminal Court unless you engage the national jurisdiction. The jurisdiction and functioning of the court shall be governed by the provisions of the statute, and anyone who wants to go there needs to read the Rome Statute very well. Genocide, crimes against humanity. Do you know what you are talking about? You have to. Genocide, for the purpose of the statute, genocide means any of the following acts: killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. All that is happening in Darfur. It's happening in the Masalit right now. Forcibly transferring children from the group to another group, or killing them. The Jandaweed are killing them. Article 7, crimes against humanity, enslavement, deportation or forcible transfer of population, imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law, torture, rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilization, persecution against any identifiable group or collectively on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, religious, gender, or defined in paragraph 3 on the grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law. And it goes on. Go to the website and educate yourself about crimes against humanity and read chapter 7 very well. War crimes, very well defined, and you have got to make sure that you meet these conditions before you talk about war crimes. Grave breaches of the Geneva Convention of the 12th of August 1949, namely any of the following acts: willful killing, torture or inhuman treatment, willfully causing great suffering. So when you come to war crimes, you have got to meet those definitions. And you need to read the websites of the United Nations and the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice very well before you throw out these terms. Now let me turn to Darfur, the unfortunate Darfur. Northern Darfur with the capital at Al-Fashir, Western Darfur with the capital at Al-Junaina, Southern Darfur with the capital at, where is the capital of Southern Darfur? At Niala, sorry, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. And this is where we have Redom National Reserve, and we have Kafia Kinji, and we have Afrat al-Nahas. And Southern Darfur has got borders with Northern Bahr al-Ghazal and with Western Bahr al-Ghazal. People travel to Raja across River Kir or Bahr al-Arab. And the figures I have, I think it was the 2018, 2019, is that Northern Darfur has a population of 1.6 million people. Western Darfur, a population of 1.66 million people. Southern Darfur was very populous, 2.960, almost 3 million inhabitants in Southern Darfur. A total of probably 6 to 7 million people. Some estimates will be under that, some estimates will be over that. There has been no census in Sudan for a long time, and there has been demographic movement and disturbance. So unless we have a census, we didn't know what on earth is going on. One of the main reasons why we are developing this video is to review the report by Sultanate Dar Masalit, the Sultanate of Dar Masalit, dated the 18th of June 2023, very recent. SCOAC report painful report that has listed with great detail the atrocities committed against innocent, docile, peaceful citizens. And all of a sudden, their life is completely shattered. Their women are raped. Their children are killed discriminately simply because they are Masalit. They are grabbed from their moms, and once they are make sure that it is a boy, although he's a child, they get killed. Then they rape the women so that they impregnate them, so that those who will be born will be quote unquote Arabs, bloody Arabs. The number of villages that have been destroyed, the number of people who have been killed is unbelievable. 5,000 people have been killed. 8,000 people have been injured. All the camps that were housing the displaced people, and there are a total of 86 camps, they have been completely looted and destroyed. The palace of Sultanate Dar Masalit was looted and burned. And the elder brother of the Sultan, Prince Tariq Abdurrahman Bahraddin, has been killed. And it goes on. Even the sources of water have been destroyed. In Forberenga, 1,000 houses were burned down. So what do they want? The paper is written in Arabic, but it is factual. It is well laid out, has got a lot of rationale. They want international intervention to protect civilians, universal right. They want humanitarian aid because there is nothing to keep the people alive. They want those wounded, the 8,000, to have treatment. They want some kind of protection to be able to bury the dead so that they are not eaten with the dogs. They want the SRF to stand trial, and at the top of that, General Abdurrahman Jima Tabarakallah and the rest of the Janjaweed with him. But what is new in the vocabulary of Sudan is they want Sultanate Dar Masalit to fall under international protection, United Nations Protectorate. If that becomes the norm, God knows how long Sudan can stand. Let me park there. I will come to the Masalit later on. This is their predicament. This is the tragedy within the tragedy. I thought I will put it out first. But I will talk about the Masalit later on. Now I'm going to talk about the IGAD and the AU, the paper tigers, full of bastards. And there is a very bad man, extremely bad man, Werkana Gabriello, the Executive Secretary General of the IGAD. This non-entity Ethiopian, he said that he's going to hold Al-Burhan accountable. How? Dare you, Gabriello, step into the borders of Sudan, and then you will know who can be held accountable. And then the conspiracy to bring about a committee headed by Rutu, the criminal, the land grabber. As I said earlier, just Google his name and the 5 court cases will come down. Sudan does not work or deal with criminals. Thank you very much. And they are working as if Sudan belongs to someone. No consultations, no attention to what Sudan is saying, no attention to what General Burhan is saying. And what bugs me really is why on earth is Sudan still a member of these paper tigers? For heaven's sake, stand up for your country, stand up for your military pride, and tell the IGAD to go to hell. And tell the African Union and Musa Faki, both of them, to go to hell. Sudan does not need them. They don't have any capacity or knowledge or good faith to deal with the issues of Sudan. They're causing a lot of damage. And while I am at it, South Sudan needs to be careful as well. Don't deal with Rutu, the rotten Rutu, on issues dealing with Sudan. Otherwise, President Salva Kiir, our confidence in you is going to erode, you and your government. For heaven's sake, just go back to your own history. Why on earth did the resolution that led to the CPA, it started in 1994 and it ended in 2005, 11 years. Why do you think that getting Al Burhan and Hemeti together is going to solve the problems? It will not. Don't underestimate Sudan. Don't underestimate the calamity. We need a process. If you cannot develop a process and rally people around it, for heaven's sake, stay away. Stay away. We don't want people who take us lightly. We don't want people who take the current predicament of Sudan lightly. We don't like people who will equate between Hemeti, who is an insubordinate officer, and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces that were established in 1925, when all of Africa was still lingering in poverty and walking naked. Call a spade a spade. And remember Thabo Mbeki. How long has he been there? How many hundreds of thousands of dollars did he cash in his pocket? And what was the result? Look at where we are. That's not subjective approach does not solve these problems. What we want is processes. This is why the CPA succeeded. So for heaven's sake, President Salva Kiir, we don't want you, we don't need you to get Al Burhan and Hemeti together. And as I told you earlier, don't receive the envoys of Hemeti as if they are ministers of foreign affairs. That does not augur well. Which takes me to the oil. The flow of oil from South Sudan is anywhere between 135,000 to 170,000 barrels per day. When South Sudan separated in 2011, the production was 350,000 barrels per day. It has come down to about 1/3 now. And yes, there is royalty for passing it through the pipeline of Sudan. The pipeline is owned by Sudan. So be careful about that. And oil is not exported from Higli, which is currently and temporarily under the control of Hemeti and his gang, but from Brashair, which is on the Red Sea. And the passage from Higli up to Port Sudan is under the control of the government of the day. So don't play games. We don't want to do that. Sudan does not want to do that. But don't push people against the world. What you need to do, President Kiir and South Sudan, is to tell Abdulaziz Al-Hilo off and to make sure that he goes back around Gouda and he hibernates there. Why? Because he's stabbing staff in the back. And you don't want to back someone who is doing that. Because that someone might just shut the valve of oil. That's not a threat. That's a wake-up call. This Abdulaziz Al-Hilo said that he considers staff in Arabic قوة احتلال, a force of colonization, and that he is going to clean دنس الاحتلال, the dirt of this occupation. And he attacked Kadugli and he attacked the lynch. And then he attacked the Blue Nile as well. Al-Hilo and Co. cannot live for 10 days if South Sudan cuts off their support. He gets support from nowhere. Has got no factories, has got no cultivation, he has got no aeroplanes. So if Juba wants to stop Al-Hilo, in one day they can. And if they don't, SAF will stop Al-Hilo the same way they are stopping Himeti now. But there will be consequences. Yes, sir. But in the middle of that, I got a very sympathetic, very gentle message from one of the states, opening the doors of that state for Sudanese who are fleeing the violence, that they will give them protection, and that if they need camps, the camps will be set up for them, not through the UNHCR, but through the local people. Those are the South Sudanese we know. Those are the South Sudanese we know. And the government of Sudan, the government of the day, has made it abundantly clear that they are not going to deal with what they call the IGAD initiative. And there is no initiative. There is no initiative really. And you cannot hold the meeting about Sudan while Sudan is not there. And you cannot ignore what the head of state in Sudan is saying and his political stand and his military stand. Right. Now I want to go to the Honorable Masalit and this unfortunate predicament, tragedy that befell them through no fault of theirs. Himeti wants to bring in his fellow, what they call Arab tribes from Central West and West Africa to inundate Darfur as a start and kick out what they call the Nuba, the black people. They want to be kicked out. Yeah. The Masalit, the records I have, the record I have dates back to 1874 when the Sultan was Hajjam Hasaballah Kingi Fartak. The Masalit are in Duka. And then Ismail Abdel Nabi and his son Abu Bakr after him. بحر الدين أبو بكر، اندوكا، عبد الرحمن بحر الدين، مساعد عبد الرحمن بحر الدين. And the Masalit, Darfur was annexed by the British in 2016. The Masalit remained an independent country for another 6 years. They were annexed through an agreement and not through defeat, as happened with Darfur and Munwashi. It's an agreement with the Sultan, who realized that he cannot fight the British. In 1922, the Masalit joined Sudan, just 100 years back. And the same way the Mahdists killed Gordon in Khartoum, the Masalit killed Captain Felganesho and Colonel Moll from France. They actually defeated the French and they killed the two senior officers. So they paid their price. So it did not fall after a battle. That area actually saw a lot of kingdoms, sultanates. The Daju were the first, according to my records, followed by the Tingur, followed by the Four. So there has been a history behind those areas. And then the Zagawa Kubga or Kubi, they had their own sultanate. Gimir, the Gimir actually defeated the army that was sent by Khalif Abdullah of the Mahadis. The Sultanate of the Tama. And if you go to Umdurman and go to Morada and just west of the market of Morada, you will find Haitama, a complete locality that are descendants of Tama fighters that came to support the Mahdi. There is a lot of writing about the Masalit, where they came from. And there are those stupid guys who are claiming that the Masalit were descended from the Arabs and that they have got a relationship with Prophet Muhammad himself. Well, all that was a bunch of rubbish. Even the Funj, before they established Sinnar, they said that they are Arabs as well, because only 3 of the fleeing Umayyad princes crossed Bab al-Mandab and came and settled and got married to them. And said, now we're Arabs as well, we are not slaves. So this synonymity between, if you are an Arab, you are a free person, and if you are black, you are a slave. That has got to end. That's inhuman. That's against any universal rights. According to the best information that I have from different sources, that they came from the southern parts of Libya. And they settled where they are now. They were part of the 4 kingdoms at times, and they were also independent at other times. The Masalit are divided into 2 main parts, Masalit al-Hush and Masalit al-Batha. We wouldn't go into that because it is one tribe, one language, and they have a very peculiar, very interesting language. But they are under-resourced and they are under-respected. There are 119 sub-tribes of the Masalit. Those are documented. I have them one by one. 119 sub-tribes. You can imagine their number then. And there may be more. There may be more. And Hajjam Hasaballah was the first sultan who actually united the Masalit. The Mahdiya and Osman Jano, the goddamn Osman Jano, they killed so many of the Masalit and they abducted so many of their women and they destroyed so much of the Masalit land. But then this could not have gone without some kind of retaliation. The retaliation was not military, but his camp and his Ansar were hit by cholera and it killed them like flies. Well deserved, very well deserved end. And he had to flee to go out. They had their fights with the four as well, and there is a famous battle of Shawai in 1905. They are ruthless fighters, however, because of their numbers, they get defeated and they get annihilated. 22nd of May 1916, the Brits annexed Darfur, and in 1922, voluntarily, the Masalit decided to go into the new unified Sudan. But the Tunisi wrote about them, Bakental wrote about them. So there is quite a bit of record, and they have been where they are now for over 150 years now. And they moved locally within Africa. They did not, like the Arabs, they did not come from the peninsula into Egypt and then down south during the Fatimid kingdom. If there is a way for the Masalit to become a protectorate under the United Nations, I don't know. How far their pledge will go, I don't know. And the days when Sudan was of interest to the West, there is no international community. That's a ploy. And anybody with any brains at all, even the brains of a chicken, will know that this is a ploy by the West. There is the global West and there is the global East, Russia, China, and India. And there is the global South, and that's Africa and Latin America. That's it. There is no international community. Don't cheat us. You can't. No longer. We got educated. We know now. We know. The CPA, yes, there was a war for 20 years. Yes, South Sudan and the South Sudanese were considered second-class citizens and so on. However, the agreement was an evangelical one. It is the countries with adherence to the church and to Christianity that pushed and pushed and pushed, because South Sudan was one of the few remaining parts of the world that was fertile and prone for the gospel, to preach the gospel, to make them Christians. At that time, they were about 9 or 10 million people, and only a small percentage of them were Muslims. The quite a number, 18, 19, 20% were Christians. The majority of them were believers in African religious systems, and those are very suitable for the people of Africa. It is Islam and Christianity that actually wrecked all of Africa. So there is little that can be done for the Masalit. The geographic distance, the fact that they are in the far west, is not really helping. The fact that after the CPA and separation of South Sudan, the evangelicals lost any interest whatsoever in Sudan, other than lip service. But if you are in the know, lip service will not cheat you. And we don't want lip service to cheat the Sudanese. I think I will stop there. And this is going to be produced in a YouTube. And pretty soon it is going to go into the website. And these YouTubes are going to continue. They will start to dig deeper. SCOAC is a quality organization, not a quantity organization. We are not wide-based. We don't want a large crowd. We are not going to open up and people raise their hand and stand up and do what they want. This does not help. We are going to do analysis. We are going to do evidence-based analysis. We are going to do credible analysis. We are going to move slowly but surely to see if Sudan can be helped on the ground in Sudan. We are not for bringing the relatives. We are not for bringing the children. We are not for bringing the friends. That's not our business. We are not for collecting money. People who want to do that can go for GoFundMe. What we want to do is to influence the policy of our country, Canada, so that they become aware of the facts of life in Sudan and see if they can help. God bless you and see you in my video number 20. Bye-bye.